So really glad that everybody could join us, man. This is fun. I think it's more fun if you guys participate because I don't want to just get up here and start chatting away and I'm not really getting to your questions or the things that you were really concerned about. So if you have something specific, please just ask. I see the chat log right here. As soon as a question comes up, I'll just answer that question, whatever I'm talking about. But the purpose of what we're trying to do is I really want to try and reset our mindset on what pain is, what causes pain, and that will give us a better understanding of what a long-term solution looks like, because the model that we have right now just in the industry and in our society doesn't really fit with long-term solutions. It doesn't really get to the source of the pain. It just kind of manages the pain, and that's not really what we're interested in, right? As a patient, as someone who's suffering from pain, you're not interested in temporary pain solutions. You're interested in long-term solutions, long-term benefits. How do I get rid of this forever? And that's what I want to try and at least arm you with. And it starts with a mindset. So the current model that we have is an inflammatory model. Okay. Everything that you hear about when you go to a doctor's office, you go to get pain medication, you go to get some type of prescription or whatever, everything is really based off of inflammation, right? I got news for you. Inflammation is not the problem, okay? And actually, by stopping inflammation, you may be prolonging the problem that you currently have. So I want to just explain what inflammation is, why it's there in the first place. Why did God give us this chemical in our body called inflammation? We naturally make it. It's supposed to be there. What's it for, right? And how does it affect or not affect your pain that you're experiencing, okay? So inflammation in your body is a chemical in your body. It travels through a fluid in your body called the lymphatic system, okay? Your lymphatic system is kind of like your blood, but instead of it supplying you with blood, oxygen, and nutrients, it supplies you with things that fight infections, heal tissues, and bring new cells to tissue, okay? It's kind of like your body's natural defense fluid and your natural healing fluid, okay? The inflammation is really important in your body. The problem is there's certain chemical mediators inside inflammation that can irritate nerves and cause them to send pain signals. So it hurts. And that's a way of your body telling you that something is wrong, right? You're going through a healing process. You have inflammatory mediators in your body. Take it easy for a little bit. Don't go on that 5-mile hike because it's going to hurt. It's your body's telling you to slow down, okay? So knowing that information, here's what happens when you have tissue damage in your body. When you have tissue damage in your body, there are cells that connect that tissue together. Okay? There's a bunch of cells that make up a tissue, and they're all binded together to make one cohesive tissue. When you have an injury, that tissue breaks, okay, or it tears, or there's micro trauma in it. You might not even be able to see it on an MRI or an image because it might not be on a macro scale. But if you have pain somewhere in your body, there's some sort of cell damage happening, okay? And what happens is once that irritation happens, once that tissue damage happens, your body needs to heal that tissue. So it sends in a fluid called inflammation with little cell types. They're called macrophages and neutrophils. They go into the area and they eat up all the dead cells. They clean up all the cellular debris. They're kind of prepping the area for healing. They're trying to clean up what's happened at the tissue damage site. After, this is a very interesting part, after the inflammation comes into the area in order to eat up all the dead cells and prep the area for healing, right behind inflammation, like a magnet, it's kind of like drug behind it, okay? Right behind inflammation are new cells. They're called progenitor cells. Progenitor cells make new tissue. They are the healing cells. They are what give you the new, fresh tissue. So if you stop the inflammation for any reason, the progenitor cells can't get to the tissue and it stops the healing process, okay? So if you have an injury in your body and you injure some tissue and you pulled your back out, okay, and now your body's trying to heal that tissue, inflammation comes into the area to prep the site for healing, and behind the inflammation are new cells that heal that tissue. If you stop that inflammatory process, progenitor cells cannot get there. You prolong the healing process. So if you did something like take a medication, what would that medication do? That medication is designed to make you feel better temporarily. It is a temporary pain relief. Pain medications that are over the counter are in a category of medications called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They're called NSAIDs. So what that stands for is non-steroidal. There's no steroids in them. Anti-inflammatory. They get rid of inflammation. Okay, what do we not want to do right now? We're trying to promote the healing process. The last thing we want to do is stop the healing process, right? So if you take an anti-inflammatory medication like Advil, ibuprofen, Aleve, all those kind of over-the-counter pain meds, you are stopping inflammation. You are stopping the natural healing process. Progenitor cells cannot get to your tissue to heal it, and you're making it take longer to recover. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, everybody in the chat log, just give me a quick yes, no, a quick thumbs up, something like that. Just let me know if you guys are following me here. If I need to back up and re-explain something, quick thumbs up or something like that, just to let me know that you got that. So we don't want to stop inflammation. We want to promote it, actually. Okay, we actually want to do the opposite of stop it. If you stop the inflammation, you're stopping the healing process. Progenitor cells can't heal you. Okay. The other thing that happens is we tend to use ice a lot, right? What does ice do? Ice tends to freeze things and slow them down and make them like thicker, and they're more viscous. It's harder for them to move. If you freeze something, it goes slower, right? So if you put ice on something, you're taking a vessel that is supposed to be bringing inflammation into an area, and it is squeezing that vessel and stopping the inflammatory flow. And now again, you're stopping the inflammation. Ice does feel good, so good. So you're stopping the inflammation, you're stopping the healing process. So I got two questions. I want to answer them before I go further. Is there a better pain reliever to use instead? And ice feels so good and I just want to use it. So I'll address the first question. Is there a better pain reliever to use? The better pain relievers to use are actually things that are topical analgesics that don't address inflammation, okay? So a topical analgesic is something that you can put over the top of your skin, and that will stimulate the skin to send a signal other than pain, and they're gonna stimulate what are called mechanoreceptors in your body, and if that signal is being sent, pain signals can't be sent because they go on the same track. And I don't want to get too much into the neurology, but topical analgesics are a better option because they're not chemically stopping the inflammation internally. It's just topically getting rid of some of the irritation. So something like Tiger Balm is a great option. It's like it comes in a little case like this, like an octagon. It's actually a heat application, so it doesn't cause any ice. It's not like icy hot because you don't want the cold application of menthol. So something like Tiger Balm is awesome, and I'll put that in the comments if you guys want to go check that out. Tiger Balm. Be prepared. It's a heat application, so it's got like cayenne pepper in it and stuff. Don't touch your eyes when you use it, okay? So that's a good pain reliever to use. And I'm going to give you another tool instead of taking anything. The long-term solution doesn't come from pain relief. And this is going to also address the second question that I had was, but ice feels so good, okay? There are two things that we're worried about when you have pain. One is recovery time. How long is it going to take me to recover from this problem? And the second is pain relief. Pain relief and recovery time are opposites. They do not go hand in hand. If you get pain relief, that does not mean that you are recovered, okay? So ice is going to give you temporary pain relief, but it's going to make it take longer to recover. If that makes sense, give me a quick yes, no. It's going to give you temporary pain relief because it's going to stop inflammation, which stops the pain temporarily. But it's going to make it take longer to recover because the healing cells can't get there. So if you are concerned only about pain relief, ice it all you want and ice it until you're 80 because it will keep hurting you. If you are worried about recovery time and creating a long-term solution, allowing your healing cells to heal damaged tissue, try not to do that. You will have temporary pain when that happens. Temporary pain with a long-term solution or temporary relief with a short-term solution. You get what I'm saying there? Try not to address only the pain. You have to address the source of the problem, which is the healing of the tissue, right? And then we're going to get into a little bit later of why these things happen and why you get tissue damage and all kinds of other stuff. So I hope that makes sense. Ice does feel good. Ibuprofen does feel good. It will certainly get rid of your pain until that medication wears off and now you have pain again. It's not a long-term solution, right? That's not how you solve pain. That's how you maybe address it or manage it temporarily, but that's not how you solve pain. We're talking about solving pain problems, right? Okay, so I hope that answers your questions. If you guys have any other questions, just write them in the comments and I'd be glad to answer them. So I just want to get back on track. So here's the problem. You have anti-inflammatory medications and ice, which have been drilled into our heads that they are what we do when you have an injury, right? What's the acronym everybody's ever heard of, right? RICE. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's what they teach us in school. It's what they still teach us in school. That is a very old model, okay? That came out in like the early 80s. And the guy who came out with that study came out like 4 years ago and published in a medical journal that we shouldn't be doing that anymore. Same guy who came up with RICE is saying, don't do that anymore, okay? If we're still doing the same thing we were doing 40 years ago in the medical industry in the 80s, something's wrong, right? People are still in pain. There's a reason why we have an opioid crisis. That model is not working. It doesn't work. It temporarily works. It's not a long-term solution. It doesn't solve anything. So instead of doing the ice and the anti-inflammatory medications, what are the other options available to us that actually promote the healing process, promote the tissue regeneration process, and stop it from being a long-term problem? So when you have tissue damage and you have the inflammation coming in and you have the progenitor cells behind the inflammation, it's not that you want to stop inflammation altogether. You just want to get it out of the area as fast as possible, okay? So I like to use an analogy here, and I think a lot of people follow it. When you have tissue damage, imagine a sink in your house, okay? And as soon as you damage that tissue, the faucet gets turned on, okay? The faucet gets turned on, that's inflammation coming in. And once that sink fills up to a certain level, now I have pain. So if I just turn the faucet off, I don't bring any more healing cells in and nothing happens. And I just keep it there and no healing occurs. So the only way to help this scenario by keeping the faucet on is to make sure the drain is not clogged and we can get it out of the area. Okay, does that make sense? You don't want to just turn the faucet off. You just want to make the drain bigger so that the flow can increase. You get more inflammation out, which then brings more healing cells in, and you actually speed the healing process up, right? So the way that your body works as far as inflammation is concerned is it travels through your lymphatic system, like I mentioned before. Your lymphatic system is a circulatory fluid in your body, just like your blood circulates. It's a circulatory system, okay? Your blood has the convenience of a heart, okay? You have something pumping your blood through your system, So even when you're not moving, even when you're sleeping and just resting, there's something pumping vital tissue and vital fluid through your body because it's a vital fluid. You need blood to survive. Lymphatic fluid, while it is a circulatory fluid and it does circulate through vessels in your body, it's not a vital fluid. There's no pump for your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a heart. There's nothing to pump it through. So when inflammation comes into an area, it tends to stay there. And then more inflammation comes in. And then more inflammation comes in. Now you have swelling, now you have pain. So the problem is we want to try and improve lymphatic circulation. That's the whole goal to solving pain. You need to improve your lymphatic circulation. That will get rid of 90% of your pain problems, I guarantee it. Okay? So once the inflammation comes into the area, how do we get it out? The inflammatory vessels in your body, the little vessels that carry the fluid, go through your muscles. Okay? And when you move, it squeezes your vessels. It squeezes the little bags of lymphatic tissue. And as you move, that muscular contraction causes the fluid to circulate. And that's what pumps the inflammation out of the area of pain and gets more progenitor cells into the area of pain so that more healing process can happen. So if you rest, ice, and take anti-inflammatory medications, those are the three worst things you could do to heal as fast as possible. Okay? We don't want to rest because that stops the circulation of your lymphatic fluid. You want to move as much as you can. The more you can move, the better you will feel because that will keep the circulation of your lymphatic fluid moving and stop the inflammation from pooling into an area of pain. So I got a really great question. Is it any movement or is it certain types of exercises? Great question. So in the beginning, when you first injure yourself, any type of movement that is pain-free range of motion. We don't want to be causing more pain. So when I say movement, I don't necessarily mean you have to be moving limbs, okay? What I mean is you just need to be at least, see this here? At least flexing. I'm pumping all kinds of lymphatic fluid through my body right now. I don't necessarily need to be moving my wrist. Moving my wrist might hurt if I just sprained my wrist. But if I can take a little ball and just squeeze it a little bit without pain, that will pump inflammation through my system, and now my sprained wrist won't be swollen anymore. And now, now I can do this. Oh, now I can do this. Oh, great, now I can do this. And you will keep getting more and more range of motion as more inflammation pumps through. So at first, any movement, whatever you can do to just keep moving, just flex if you have to just flex. The more you move, the less it will hurt. Okay. This is why if you've had chronic pain, everybody knows this. If anybody who suffers from chronic pain, your pain probably doesn't hurt during the middle of your day. It hurts in the morning and it hurts at night. What are you not doing in the morning and not doing at night? You're not moving, right? You just slept for 8 hours. The morning is the worst it's ever been because you've had chronic pain for 10 years, and that's when all the inflammation sets in. You've been sleeping, you haven't been moving. You're not circulating the fluid anymore. And then at night, you go through your day, you finally get moving, you're working all day long, you don't even notice your pain, you're totally pain-free. You finally sit down on the couch to watch TV, and boom, your back starts hurting. And what do you reach for? Ibuprofen, right? It's not that it's hurting now because you're resting or you're in bad posture. It's hurting now because you're not moving anymore. You got to keep moving. Okay? And I know that's tough to do sometimes, especially when you're in pain. It's very discouraging to be in pain, and you want to just rest. But the more you move, the faster you'll heal. So I got another great question. Thoughts on THC CBD lotion? I think this is a great question because it's a hot button item right now. I think that these things, depending on the source of where you get them, can be valuable. I think that the open market right now is not a valuable place to be getting them. I think from prescriptions is a really valuable place to be getting them. And here is my analogy. I think it makes total sense. So CBD and THC are molecules inside of plants. That molecule or that chemical is in a lot of plants. Marijuana is one of the plants that CBD chemicals can be found in. Now, here's my analogy. You have animals that have fur on them. Let's pick cats, for example. Okay. You have a house cat with fur and you have a lion with fur. Okay. Both in the same family. They're both cats. Okay. Everybody would agree with that. Now, if I take cat fur from my house cat, is that going to be the same from cat fur from a lion? Totally different. Different species. Same family. They're in the same category of animals. They're both cats, but they're very different cats. Okay? CBD oil is the same thing. You have CBD oil that has medicinal properties that's extracted from marijuana that's been tested in medical journals and that's been refined. And we know that that has medicinal properties to it. CBD oil extracted from marijuana. Then you have a cat called hemp, which is another type of this type of plant. It's in the same family, but it's not marijuana, which also has CBD molecules in it. Those molecules do not have medicinal properties. Those are the types of oils you can get over the counter right now. They're not illegal to get. You can buy them from a friend of yours. There's probably some multi-level marketing friend of yours that has CBD oil available. That has not been tested in medical journals. The jury is still out on those. That is the house cat of what we're talking about. The lion that gives you the relief is the extraction from the marijuana, which you can only get through a prescription. So if you're worried about CBD oil, you're kind of rolling the dice on over the counter. You probably have a good chance of getting some temporary pain relief from a prescription. But again, that's only going to be temporary pain relief because it's not really solving the problem. I hope that makes sense. What about chronic pain where there is no inflammation, but there is still pain or at least inflammation that I can't see? Okay, so all pain has inflammation. There is no pain that does not have inflammation. Even nerve pain has inflammation. And when you have chronic pain that's been there for like years, what's happening is at that point, you have a mechanical dysfunction and you're chronically injuring the same spot over and over and over again. And that's why you need someone to look at your mechanics and just tell you how you're moving improperly. So a really easy example of this is like a pinched nerve, okay? If you have a pinched nerve in your neck, there's no medication in the world that's going to unpinch a nerve. This just doesn't happen, right? There's no amount of medication in the world that's going to reduce inflammation long-term on a pinched nerve. If it's pinched, you will temporarily get pain relief. You will temporarily get rid of the inflammation around that area. And then when the medication goes away, you still have a pinched nerve and the inflammation comes back. So you need to unpinch it, right? I hope that makes sense. Most of the time when you have a chronic problem, it's a mechanical dysfunction in your body. Something is not doing what it's supposed to be doing and it needs to be corrected. You have a joint restriction or arthritis somewhere and it's not moving the way that it needs to be, or there's just an easy example is a door hinge. Okay, when I have a door and I open it, the hinges need to operate a certain way so that the door can close smoothly. If I have the hinges here and one of them is off kilter and I go to close the door, I'll get damage on the side of the door as I keep trying to slam it shut. You could fix that all day long and you could put topical analgesics on it and you could put CBD oil on it and you could do all you want, put ice and everything for temporary pain relief, and you could patch that door up all day long. If you don't fix the mechanical problem causing the damage, you're just going to keep battling that pain all day long. You got to fix the hinge. So oftentimes when you've had pain for a really long period of time, it's probably not the site of pain that's getting injured. It's probably coming from the site of pain is where you're getting injured, but the problem is coming from somewhere else. It's some mechanical problem somewhere else that's causing that area of your body to get damaged. I got two more questions. Does too little muscle in the back promote pain in the back? Absolutely. So particularly in the back and the lumbar spine, you want to have a nice, stable spine. That area of your body does not like to move very often or move very well. It's not designed for movement, and I will show you that in just a second. So your low back likes to be stable. It doesn't like to move as far as the joint's design is concerned. So the stronger your back is, the stronger your core is, the more you can stabilize your spine, the less pain you'll have in your back. So yeah, absolutely. You want a nice, strong back. The second question that I have is chronic numbness treated the same as pain? Not necessarily. So numbness is a symptom. It's not really a condition. And that doesn't really tell me enough to create a long-term solution. Numbness can be caused by a variety of different reasons. The most common reason is nerve impingement. Another reason is vascular compromise. So when you have tissue or fluid being delivered to a tissue, you want it to get an adequate amount of oxygen supply. And if there isn't an adequate amount of oxygen supply, you'll get these little tingling pins and needles, right? And your hand feels thick. Everybody's probably laid on their arm too long and their hand feels thick or something like that. That's a vascular problem. And then you let it go and the blood kind of flows down and now I can move my hand again and it feels better. Okay. So that's one type of numbness and tingling. You need to get an exam to see what's causing the numbness for me to get a better answer. So if it's a vascular problem, you need a vascular solution. If it is a nerve problem, you need a nerve solution. Okay. Now, symptoms can be caused by three different reasons. The most common reason for symptoms in your body are physical problems. I have something physically clamping down on an artery in my leg and causing me numbness and tingling down my leg. I'm leaning on a table and I have something physically pinching my arm, right? That's a physical issue. No medication in the world going to fix a physical problem. You just got to straighten your arm out, get the blood supply back, and that's what fixes it, right? The other is chemical problems. Let's say you have lupus and you have certain markers in your bloodstream that are chemicals in your body that are circulating, destroying tissue. Chemical problems need chemical solutions. You need a medication for that. There's no adjustment in the world. There's no stretch in the world. There's no exercise in the world that's going to cure your lupus, right? You need medication for that. And then the third one is the least common. They're emotional triggers. And this is where we're going to get a little sidetracked, but emotional triggers are some people, unfortunately, maybe you've been abused, or maybe you've had some type of trauma in your life, or maybe you've been in a really bad car accident. And every time you get in the car and you're in traffic, you get a headache. Okay, that's a psychosocial aspect of pain. And those are emotional triggers of pain. They're way less common. And if somebody has questions about them, I can answer them. But those are the three main causes of symptoms in your body. Emotional triggers. After emotional triggers, you have chemical triggers, like you have some type of chronic disease or maybe an infection. And the other, which is the most common, which 80% of people have, are physical problems. And this is the example I was giving before. There's no medication in the world that's going to unpinch a nerve. If you have a physically pinched nerve, you need a physical solution. And that's where massage therapists, chiropractors, physical therapists, and manual treatment care providers come into play. And why we do so well with conditions is because they're so commonly caused by physical problems. So we're like 3 minutes over time. I just want to wrap it up real quick. We went over a lot, and I hope it didn't feel like you were drinking from a fire hose, and I hope you got some value out of what we talked about. If anybody has a question, please put them in the comments. If anybody like wants an evaluation of a condition or something like that, you have something specific and you're like, hey, I've had this issue for this amount of time, can you help me? Ask those questions too, and someone from our staff will try and help you out with that. But I just want to kind of wrap it up. So if you have comments or questions, or you need to make an appointment, just put it in the comments and somebody will get to you, I promise. So to wrap things up, the whole purpose of this talk is to try and encourage you to think differently about pain. Stop reaching for the anti-inflammatory drugs. They don't work. That's why you've had pain for 10 years. It's not helping you. It's giving you temporary pain relief so you can get through your day, which I get it. That is important. You need to feel better. It's important for your emotional status, your relationships with your family, your job. You need to feel good so that you can behave well. Sometimes when we're in pain for a long period of time, we lose our patience, and that's not okay either. So I understand sometimes we do need those temporary pain solutions, but remember, they are temporary pain solutions. They do not solve the problem. A lot of times my patients come in here and they're like, hey, I'm dying right now. It's like, okay, yeah, go take some ibuprofen, relax. Okay, when you come back in, that'll give you some temporary pain relief. That's going to break your pain cycle. But if you don't do anything, when that medication wears off and that chemical is not circulating in your body anymore, what's going to happen? Pain's coming back. You haven't fixed anything, right? So the thing that I'm trying to encourage you guys to do is to think differently about what's happening. What is the long-term solution? How do I get my back to stop hurting? How do I stop creating chronic plantar fasciitis in my foot? Why do I get chronic headaches? It's not inflammation. Inflammation is the response to a dysfunction. You're not fixing the dysfunction by addressing inflammation. You're just addressing its response. If I had a room filling with gas, okay, and someone came in and lit a match, okay, that match was not the problem. And you could go in there and try and fix a match problem, but if you don't take care of the leaking gas in the room, that room's going to explode again every time. As soon as someone lights another match, boom, whole room goes up. So when you have chronic problems that recur over and over again, and every 6 months you throw your back out, and every 5 months you try and start working out again, you get plantar fasciitis, and every 3 months I get chronic migraines, right? If you have a chronic problem that's recurring like that all the time, you don't have an inflammatory problem. You don't have a match problem. It's not the trigger that caused it that time. It's the gas filling in the room that no one has identified. What you need to do is figure out what the gas is. Why is this problem constantly causing triggers to explode it in my body and recur this problem over and over again? That's the idea. You got to figure out what the gas leak is so that once we turn that off, you can light as many matches as you want. It's never going to trigger the problem again. So stop addressing the triggers. You got to start addressing the cause. To address the cause, what we do is we do a really thorough exam. I mean, any medical provider should be doing this for you. So you should be getting a really thorough exam. You should be getting what's called an orthopedic exam, a neurological exam, and a functional exam. What those exams do is a neurological exam will test the integrity of your nervous system as it comes out of your body and goes into different areas of your body. And any neurologist could do this for you. Most medical providers can too. Obviously, chiropractors can. Orthopedic exams are designed to try and reproduce your symptoms. So just because you have low back pain, it doesn't tell me anything, right? And just because you have inflammation in your back doesn't tell me anything. What I need to know is why. So there's a lot of tissues in your low back, right? There's all kinds of tissues in that area of your body. And if I can put you in a position or I can ask you to do something and I can cause your symptoms, I know exactly what tissue is getting damaged, right? Because I know what that tissue does. I know what tissue I'm stressing. Once we know where the tissue damage is, you need to get what's called a functional exam. What forces are you putting into that area of your body that are causing damage? How are you walking? How are you sitting? How are you lifting? How are you washing your dishes at home? How are you turning? If there's something wrong and you're not doing it the way that your body's naturally designed to do it, you're going to chew up joints in aberrant ways. You're going to cause pain somewhere else. This is the door with the hinge example, right? You could fix that door all day long. If you don't fix the hinge, nothing happens. So the key take home here is you got to figure out what the gas leak is. In order to figure out what the gas leak is, you need a really, really thorough exam. We do them here at the office. If you need a really thorough exam to solve your pain problem, please make an appointment. If you've already been here, you've probably heard me say these things multiple times. Stop reaching for the anti-inflammatory drugs. Stop reaching for the ice. Keep moving as much as possible and try and get some exercises that you can do to restabilize your body and stop the aberrant movement patterns. So we're way over time. We're about 10 minutes over. Thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. Hopefully everybody knows where we're at. If you don't for any reason, shoot me an email. You guys have everything that you need. But I'm going to be doing these every week. If you guys have some type of topic that you want me to do next time, we have tons of topics available. I have a master's degree in applied clinical nutrition. I got board certification in physiotherapy. I'm a chiropractor by trade. We have massage therapists here. We can do seminars on sleep. We just did one on stress. We could do one on a specific condition like sciatica. Whatever you guys want. These are for you. It's just for us to stay engaged while you're not in the office and I can't see you guys. I love teaching. I love giving you guys free information. Hopefully share this with somebody that you know cares about it. You know, I don't care if they live in California. Information's great, and I think it's valuable for everybody. Hopefully it helps you. So feel free to share it around. Thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see you next time.